Alright, in this lesson I want to go and kind of continue talking about the Polyextrude tool and then move on to the Revolve tool, which is a nice tool. We'll take a look at it here in a minute. But going back to the Polyextrude tool, I'm going to go ahead and come up to my shelf and I'm going to lay down a grid. So I'm going to hit Control and go ahead and left click and lay down a grid. Okay. Same thing we did before. I'm going to go to my polygon shelf and I will hit the Polyextrude. I'm going to go ahead and select my object, hit enter, and then inside here it's going to ask for the geometry that we want to extrude. I'm going to go ahead and just select everything here and then hit enter. Okay. So we have this whole grid that we could extrude. Now we looked at this last time. If I control the distance here, you can see that it just starts to press everything upward or downward, however we're extruding it. And if I inset, it's going to inset everything inward or outwards, again, depending on kind of what we're trying to achieve here. Okay. Now, I'm going to bring this back to 0. Now that's with that connected components. Now if I change this to individual elements now, and now you see we have individual faces here. Now if I start bringing out this distance, it's going to look like, again, it's still bringing everything up, but if I go ahead and adjust this inset parameter, now you can see that we're individually affecting each one of these primitives here. Okay. So we can get this little spike effect or whatever we want. But the point is that depending on what kind of effect we want, we can use this parameter here. Okay. So that's the divide into parameter here. I'm going to go ahead and delete this Polyextrude, and I'm going to just adjust the size of this grid. So I'm going to have a 1 by 1 grid. Maybe something like that. Okay, so it's pretty small, only taking up a unit. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change my view here. So right now I'm at perspective. If I come up to this little down arrow up here where it says perspective, and then I go ahead and hit the set view, I have a bunch of different options on the different types of view. So I'm going to go ahead and hit front view. Okay, so we're looking at this. You can see our gnomon Y is going up, X, and then Z is coming towards us. We can't see that, but we're looking basically at a 2D plane now. And I'm going to draw a curve kind of up here like so. So I'm going to go over to the create and I'm going to select this curve button, or this curve item here on the shelf. I'm going to select it. And I'm going to just start drawing a curve here. So I'm going to just start kind of going however I want this curve to go, something like that, and then hit enter when I'm done. Okay, and I can come back up here, set view, I can go back to perspective view, and you can see I have some type of curve here. Okay. Now I can extrude based on a curve, so I can get a specific curve shape maybe, and I can maybe extrude along that shape. Okay, and the way to do that, again, I'm going to go ahead and click on my grid object. I'm going to go ahead and go to polygon, Polyextrude, and I'm going to select my grid, my entire grid, hit enter to get my Polyextrude node. And down here where it says spine shape, it's straight, so it'll extrude it straight up and down, but I can also extrude it from a curve from second input. And if you look at my Polyextrude node, you can see that we have a second input here that we can plug something into. And if I hover over it, you can see that it's a spine curve. Okay, so I can bring a curve into here and use that to extrude upon. So the way to do that is if I hit tab over here and I start typing in object, and I get this object merge node. Okay, so I'm going to lay that down. And object merges, you'll use a lot. Object merges are a way to bring in one piece of geometry into another network, vice versa. So they're really handy. And I can just go ahead and plug that into the second input there, like so. And here, if I come down, or if I come up here where it says number of objects, my objects, and I have this little icon to the right of this little arrow. If I click it, I get my operator where I can choose specific geometry that I have available in my project here. So if I come up to curve object, I could either click that, or I can drop down this arrow and I can get my geometry level node, which is curve 1, and then I can go ahead and hit accept. And we'll talk about paths and importing and exporting geometry for this object merge node a little later, but just want to show you basically how it works. So I'm importing that in, and I'm connecting it into here. And now with this spine shape, I can switch this to curve from second input. Okay. So I'm going to start now adjusting this distance. Let's bring it up, and you can see that nothing's really happening. You can see there's a little kind of slant to this, so maybe something's working a little bit, but it's because I don't have enough divisions. Okay, so I need to go ahead and add some more divisions. If I start adding some extra divisions here, and it can get a little wonky, so you got to kind of play around with it, but it starts taking the shape of my curve here. Okay, and I can go ahead and middle mouse, and I can go beyond the limit of this slider. So if I start bringing this up a little more, and let's back out, now you can see that it's really taken the shape of my my curve here. And the reason I have this grid really big, if I made this smaller, it'd be easier to manage, but you can see that it's starting to take shape. Okay, and I can add more divisions if I want to get more of that curve in there. So you just got to kind of play around with it. See, we start getting artifacts in here, so I want to take that down one to get rid of that. But you can really play around, and again, you have your inset that you can play with, your twist if you want to start adding some twists to this. Whatever you want to do to get your shape that you need to get, you can use that curve to get a specific customized shape if you need to. Okay, I'm going to take this back to normal, and I got connected components. I can go to individual, so you can see that we get a little cool effect here, or each of the individual faces are extruded into that shape. So you can do a lot of cool things depending on what you're trying to do, but that's the basis of this extrude by curve input here. Okay, so that's basically the Polyextrude tool. Again, we'll be playing with this more throughout the course, but I just want to show you basically how this works. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and come back. I'm going to delete this. Let's go back home. The next tool I want to look at is the Revolve tool. So again, I'm going to go ahead and draw a curve. I'm going to go back to my front view here and go back to my create curve, and I'm going to start drawing a curve. Now 0, 0 is right here. I'm going to draw this curve on this left hand side and keep everything on this side. So I'm going to be using this Revolve tool, and what this Revolve tool basically is going to do is going to take my curve and build out geometry from my curve, kind of like this curve is revolving around the center axis here. Okay, building what I'm going to make like a wine glass. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start. I have my curve tool selected. The primitive type, I'm going to go ahead and click NURB so I get a smoother curve here. And I'm going to start just maybe making this a wide wine glass. So I'm going to start bringing this down. And again, I'm keeping everything on this side. Maybe put it here, and I could use a snap to grid if I wanted to get really precise, but this looks pretty good. So I'm going to hit enter, and I'm going to go back to my perspective view here, and we have our curve. Okay. So with our curve selected, I'm going to come up to not the polygon menu, but the model menu. Okay, and the model menu has a bunch more other tools that we can use to modify geometry. A lot of these are NURBS specific. Some of these aren't, which we'll go over a little later. But you can see we have the Revolve tool. Okay. Now with this curve selected, I can go ahead and click that Revolve tool, and right away it kind of revolves out that curve into geometry. Okay, and it lays down this Revolve tool underneath our node underneath this curve. And in our parameters view, we have our revolve options here. So connectivity, we got quads, where we're laying it down from, 0, 0, where we're rotating it from, and the direction. So we're rotating in Y. We have 1 here, and the X and Z are zeroed out. Convert it to polygons, detail. We can close up this, we can open it, maybe we don't want to wrap all the way around, so this goes from 0 to 360. I can always bring this back down. I don't know why it's not adjusting. Let's see. Yeah, that's strange why that's not adjusting. I don't know. Oh, I think if I like open arc, there we go, and then we can open it, and then we can bring this, so we don't have to wrap all the way around here, like so. Okay, let's close that up. Back to 360. Okay, I can set number of divisions if I want more divisions, depending on what I'm doing. End caps, if I want to close up the geometry, I can do that as well. Okay. So that's basically the Revolve tool. It's a quick way to kind of get these revolving shapes. And I can even come in here, select this, come back to my polygon, hit the Polyextrude, select that. Sorry, select this again, Polyextrude. Select all this. So I'm going to have to put down one of these. So this is a convert tool. Again, we'll be looking at this a little later on, but this can convert from NURBS to polygon. A lot of other features here. So this was a NURBS shape, and it wouldn't let me obviously use polygon extrude because it's not a polygon, so I had to convert it to a polygon. So now if I go ahead and select Polyextrude, select everything, now press enter, now I have my Polyextrude, and I can come in here and start extruding out and thicken up this object here. Okay. So that's basically the Revolve, the Polyextrude, how you can use those. Again, there's a lot of ways that you can use these tools that aren't showing what I'm doing right now. Just extruding or revolving. These could drive again some animations or some effects, or again building up maybe complex geometry to drive specific effects. Anyway, the next video I want to look at is one of the ways we can shatter some geometry. So I will see you then.